Hey guys, in today's session, what we're going to be talking about is how to shift your consciousness so you can move from anxiety into alignment and really achieve whatever you want to achieve in your life. I honestly believe that when you shift your consciousness, right, and when you start to be conscious of what you want in life, you can achieve whatever you want in life, right? And for you, that might just be right now overcoming your anxiety or overcoming the negative thoughts, getting control of your mind, right? Getting more discipline, learning how to manage your emotions better. But once you get that stuff sorted, that inner world stuff sorted, then you can, I honestly believe, use these same principles and go out and achieve whatever you want in life. So today I'm going to walk you guys through the 3-step process that we use, right? If you've read through the consciousness shifting playbook, you'll see that there's this unique 3-step consciousness shifting method. And I'm going to walk through that today. And I'm going to use this big whiteboard here to like walk you through that. But one thing I wanted to mention before we dive into all of that is that this stuff has been recently proved by quantum science, right? So in quantum science, they have done an experiment, which is called the double slit experiment, where they basically observed how waves and particles acted in this experiment when they were being observed and when they weren't being observed. So the really interesting thing is that waves and particles, which are basically like the building blocks for our reality, behaved differently when they were being observed and when they weren't being observed. So the simple act of observation or awareness changed the reality, changed how these waves and these particles acted, which is crazy to think about, right? So a wave, it's like a wave is like a vibration. It's like a light wave, right? So it's basically infinite potential. A particle is when that infinite potential of the wave becomes solid, right? So it's like energy versus, like matter, I guess you would probably call it, right? Energy versus matter. The wave is the energy, the particle is the matter. And so the simple act of observing these waves changed how they reacted, right, in this double slit experiment. So you can go and look it up if you want, and you can learn about this thing, which is called the observer effect. So the observer has a direct effect on how particles and waves actually act, which is really wild to think about, right? Because it kind of suggests that there's an innate consciousness or intelligence within everything. And when that is observed by us, right, humans, in this case, in this experiment, it acted differently. And so how you can apply this to your own life is by understanding that what you observe or what you are aware of becomes the reality, turns from a wave, which is infinite potential, into a particle, right? Which is essentially solid matter, reality, physical reality. Now, I'm drawing contrasts here between like a microscopic reality, which is this experiment they did. That was in a microscopic environment, so a small environment. But if you follow Hermetic principles, or if you understand Hermetic principles, there's a concept which is called, or a principle which is called as above, so below, or it's the law of correspondence, right? As above, so below. So if something is existing at a microscopic level, it must also exist at a macroscopic level, right? And that's the law of polarity. It's the law of correspondence, right? Understanding there's always going to be these corresponding sides to something. So if there's something that's being experienced in this microscopic kind of environment, which is this double slit experiment, the waves and the particles, they're obviously very, 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 very small, right? That also must exist in some way in a larger capacity, right? Maybe in our experience as being humans observing through our consciousness reality. Okay, so that's one thing you got to understand first. This has been proven through science recently that that the world is not how we see it to be, right? Or not how we think it is. Or alternatively, the world is exactly how you think it is, which is why it's important to be able to change your thinking, right? Because the world will respond to your observation, your awareness, and your consciousness, okay? So the question then becomes, how do we shift our consciousness, right? So another thing to think about is with your anxiety, right? I'll give you a direct experience of how this impacts your anxiety. If you are an anxious person, right? You have fearful thoughts, right? Or you have these thoughts of like, what if this happens? What if that happens, right? What if I never get better, right? What if I never succeed? What if I never make the money that I want to make? What if I never get the health that I want to make? What if I never get the relationship that I want? What if I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life? What if I'm always going to be unhappy? All these what if thoughts, right? That create this fearful experience in our body where we like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to achieve what I want to achieve. Okay. And so when you start thinking these thoughts, it sends signals to your body, and your body starts to flood itself with these stress hormones of adrenaline and cortisol, because you're thinking fearful thoughts, which creates a fearful response in your body, or a scared response in your body. You start to feel scared, and then you start to worry, and then you start to feel like, stressed, and almost as if your safety is in danger. And that becomes then a physical experience in your body because the stress hormones are releasing in your body. And so you're starting to physically feel it. So it starts off as a thought, but then it turns into a physical reality. It starts off as a thought, as like a wave, as infinite potential, which is your thoughts, right? And it becomes a physical reality. It becomes solid. It becomes a part of you, right? And then that's kind of the second thing that happens. Number one, it starts off in the head. Number two, it goes to the body. You feel it in your body. And number three, that experience that you're now having in your mind and your body confirms that it's actually, you should be afraid. You should be scared, because that's the experience that you're having. And then you end up in this loop, right? And this is not just true for anxiety, but it's also true for really anything else, like shame or guilt or a low self-worth, feeling not good enough. You start thinking those thoughts, you're going to feel those emotions in your body, and it's going to confirm the experience, right? And what you have to understand is this is usually happening internally, right? It's always is happening internally. So these are the experiences that you're having inside yourself, even if nothing has changed outside. So this is why it's so important that we tune in and we understand what's going on within ourselves, right? And we learn how to master our inner world, master our mindset, master our emotions. Because once we get that sorted, we can then use the same principles to go and create whatever we want in our life, right? Create the health, create the relationships, create the happiness, right? Whatever else it is. So then how do we do that, right? How do we actually get control of ourselves? How do we get control of our mind and our body and our emotions, right? I'm going to walk you through this consciousness shifting method, okay? This is the consciousness shifting method, and I've spent up to nearly 5 years developing this, right? And it's had different iterations, and there's been different ways that I've taught this over the years, but this is kind of what we've landed on right now, right? In 2025, I've got this consciousness shifting method, and it's really 3 parts, right? 1, 2, 3, okay? Number 1, right? 1 is up here. First thing that's got to happen is you've got to regulate your nervous system, right? You've got to get your body under control. You've got to regulate your nervous system, right? And so a lot of people get this wrong. And the reason why they get this wrong is because they try like apps like Calm or Headspace. They're trying to learn meditation, or maybe they're doing breath work, or they're trying to like experiment with these different ideas, but they're just like listening to random things on the internet, and they're not having like proper direct guidance of what to do. And in my personal experience, and with the hundreds of clients that I've worked with, people, they listen to these apps and they just don't get it, right? They're not getting it and they don't understand it. And I understand why, which is because when I personally listen to a guided meditation, I kind of just switch off. I just like, oh yeah, I just put the thing in, I just switch off and I just relax. And it's never effective like that. When I do have a successful guided meditation, it's because I'm actually intensely focused on what the person is saying. And that is something that they don't teach you, right? You actually, with meditation, it needs to be an active process where you have to be focused and concentrated, right? As opposed to just like, oh yeah, I'll just stick these things in and lie down, or passive, right? Most people try to do meditation or mindfulness or whatever else, and they're passive about it. Even people try like hypnotherapy and stuff like that, and they're passive about it. They just go to the hypnotherapist and they just kind of be like, oh yeah, fix my problems, right? Or they listen to the guided meditation, fix my problems. They're looking for a quick fix and they're not learning how to do it properly, right? And they're not active. They're just passive. They're passively looking for a quick fix. And that's never going to work. When it comes to regulating your nervous system, you actually have to focus and be concentrated, right? This is why I'm so big on discipline and commitment and self-responsibility, because you have to be active in your healing. If you want to regulate your nervous system, you need to be active in that process, right? And it starts with developing that self-awareness, right? So regulating your nervous system, and also like developing, self-awareness, right? I'm just going to put that in brackets because that's important, right? That's kind of the first step, right? Now, the second step, that's super important. Again, the problem is people don't know how to do it properly. And the solution is you've got to be more active. You've got to be more focused. You've got to really focus on that self-awareness, right? And pull yourself up and be more disciplined. And when you can do that and you have the right guidance, right? That's why it's good to have a teacher. That's why I love teaching meditation, because I like teaching it properly. And that's why I help, you guys, my clients, to actually learn how to do it properly, right? Because it's so important that you have that guidance. If it's not currently working for you, like people always tell me that they've tried it and it just doesn't work. It does work. And I want you to know that it does work, right? It might just take a little bit of time to get the hang of it, or some different guidance, some short changes or little changes. If what you're doing right now is not working, you need a little bit more guidance or a little bit of a different approach, right? Because the practice does work, but it's just, if it's not working for you, it's because it's you're not doing it properly, right? Or the penny hasn't dropped yet. But I can guarantee you, for everyone who learns how to meditate successfully, it's always a positive thing. Anyway, that's number one, right? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of draw a little arrow here down to number 2, right? And I'm going to tell you why. We're going to end up in a big circle here, and I'm going to explain why this is like this. When we get to the end. But number 2 is then you've got to reprogram your subconscious mind. So you've got programs installed in your brain. You're more like a computer than you realize, right? Your brain is actually more like a computer with programs than you would care to realize, right? So you've got to learn how to reprogram your subconscious mind. But to do that, you've got to understand, firstly, how your mind gets programmed in the first place. When you are a child, right, you're like a sponge, and your conscious brain is not really switched on yet until you get to like your teenage years. It starts to become on, and it doesn't actually get fully developed until you're in your 20s. But so those years between when you're a child and when you're in your teenage years are very formative. They're very formative for you, right? And you're getting constantly just programmed by your external environment. So your parents, your teachers, your schools, like, everything is just like being fed into your brain, and you're being programmed, right? And it's not necessarily like through some malice of like, oh, there's some ill intent. That's not the case. but you are being programmed nonetheless, right? So it's not like someone's out there trying to like secretly like program you, although, you know, an argument could be made that the government and the media do that to a degree. However, in most cases, it's not like ill-intended. It's more just unconscious. You just take the things from the environment and you just, you know, you just receive them and that becomes a part of your program, right? And for the most part, we are being programmed unconsciously by unconscious people because most people are majority unconscious, right? So we just receive like whatever shit they have learned from their own unconscious programming, right? And it's not anyone's fault. It's just like we just get passed down like stuff. You know, we get passed down ideas, we get passed down beliefs, we get passed down all these different thoughts and stuff, and all these different stories. And it's really relative to your environment, right? So if you grow up in, for example, if you grow up in Australia, you have a different set of beliefs and ideologies and cultural stories than somebody who grows up in even New Zealand, right? And Australia and New Zealand have very different ideologies and stories and beliefs than someone who grows up in India or Asia, right? Or China, right? So understand that your mind is programmed based off your environment, and the thing that you believe, the stuff that you believe is really just based off your environment and things that you've learned throughout your life. And we all have these different experiences that shape what is in our subconscious mind. So that could be like people will often tell me, oh, I don't have any emotional trauma. Maybe you don't have any emotional trauma, like, or you've never had a big traumatic event where it's like someone died or there's been war or, you know, whatever. But every single person gets imprints, emotional imprints and mental imprints from stuff that happens in their life. And so you've got to firstly develop the self-awareness to realize that, and to have the self-awareness to look at your past and realize what are some of these things that I may have learned that are not serving me to get to where I want to get to. And then to have the courage or the willingness to change them, right? So you reprogram your subconscious mind. And now most people think that this is just about changing your thoughts, but it's more than that, right? That's a part of it. Part of it is changing your thoughts, but you've also got to really identify some of those deeper limiting beliefs and change them and reprogram them. And so for some people, this comes really naturally. Like I think about like Richard Branson, you know, really successful dude, or Elon Musk, or, you know, even like Oprah Winfrey is a good example because she started off not like, you know, not in a good place. And then she made a success of herself, right? I don't know about Richard Branson. I think he was kind of, you know, started off in, you know, humble beginnings as well, and worked his way up. But some people tend to just have like a strong mindset and high levels of belief in themselves, whereas other people have low levels of belief in themselves. But it's really like a scale, right? Yeah, it's like a scale, and if you have low self-belief, you can move yourself up the scale. If you and you know, and you want to do that, and you want to work on reprogramming your subconscious mind, which is really changing your thoughts. And the second part of it is you got to feel emotionally invested in it as well. It's not just about changing your thoughts, it's also about being emotionally aligned with your thoughts. So for example, let's say you think I want to be rich, right? But you feel poor. You're never going to be rich as much as you want to tell yourself you're going to be rich. You got to start to feel rich. You got to start to feel abundant, right? Same thing with health. Let's say I want to be healthy, but you don't feel healthy, right? You've got to start to, you can tell yourself I'm going to be healthy, but you actually have to get into the emotional resonance or alignment with health. You got to start to be healthy, right? You got to start to tell yourself you're healthy. You got to start to feel healthy emotionally. What does it feel like to be healthy? And same thing with relationships, right? If you want to find a loving relationship, but you feel like low self-confidence and you kind of hate yourself, then, you know, good luck finding a good relationship. You know what I mean? Like a really connected, deeply fulfilling relationship. It's going to be hard. You have to start to be the love and to feel the love, right? And so this is what happens when you really reprogram your subconscious mind. It's not just your thoughts, because your thoughts are up here. Your subconscious is kind of down below, right? And so it's got a lot to do with your emotions as well. So your thoughts and your feelings, right? Thoughts and your feelings will create your beliefs. Let me just riff on this for 1 second, actually. Right? I'll go back to that page and I'll finish that off in a second. But I just want to riff on how do you actually reprogram your subconscious mind? Because this is what we call the mind launch method, right? And I'm going to just walk you through how do we actually reprogram our subconscious mind. Right? You've got your thoughts, right? Got your feeling, right? Thoughts and feelings lead to belief. I'm going to put a little plus sign here, right? Thoughts plus feeling equals belief, right? Now, your belief will get picked up by what's called your RAS. So you get a part of your brain, which is called the reticular activating system. Whatever you believe in your mind, you're going to see it more in your reality. It's like that observer effect that we talked about at the beginning of this session, right? Whatever you believe in your mind, you will see confirmation of that in your reality through the RAS. The RAS, the reticular activating system, is constantly scanning the environment for like confirmation of your beliefs, essentially. So a good example of this is like the red car theory. You know, when you're looking for, if you start thinking about red cars, you're going to see red cars everywhere, right? If you play that game Spotto with the yellow cars, right? You start thinking about yellow cars, you see yellow cars everywhere, right? I haven't seen yellow cars for ages because I haven't even thought about Spotto for ages, but I can guarantee you that now, after I've just shared this with you guys, I'm going to go out today and tomorrow and probably see some yellow cars around, right? And so it's like people, these coincidences, right? Or these like chance encounters that we have where you're like, oh, that's a coincidence, synchronicity. It's not a synchronicity. It's not a coincidence. It's not chance. It's got an explanation, right? Because our universe and our world is very mathematically connected, right? And I won't go too much into that, but there is no such thing as chance. Everything is coordinated, right? Everything is in some kind of a harmony and a rhythm, right? Nothing is random. I honestly believe that. Okay. And so your brain has got part of it, is involved in that connection with this RAS, right? You start thinking things and feeling things, and you start believing things, you start seeing things, right? So for example, it's very hard to convince a Christian person that Jesus is not real, right? Or that Jesus was like he never existed, or that the Bible is just full of shit, right? It'd be very hard for you to convince a Christian person about that because they believe it. And they would see proof every Sunday they go to church. Probably all of their friends are confirming the belief. They've created an environment for themselves based off their belief, right? Another example I give is like the Robert or the kind of Steve Irwin thing, where Steve Irwin would believe that snakes are not dangerous, or like he'd be happy to handle snakes, whereas I wouldn't be happy to handle snakes because I believe that snakes are dangerous, right? Steve Irwin doesn't believe that snakes are dangerous. I believe snakes are dangerous, right? So if someone threw a snake into this room right now, and I was in this room with Steve Irwin, even though it's not possible because rest in peace, but if I was, I would have a different response to him. I would be freaking out, whereas he would be calm and he'd probably just go and pick it up. So our beliefs are affecting our reality and what's happening in our body as well. So like I would go into the fight or flight, I'd be freaking out, where he'd probably be way more calm than I would, right? So anyway, the RAS confirms the belief, but here's the thing. This can happen in a positive way or a negative way. So for example, if you have positive beliefs, right? Positive, it goes up. But if you have negative beliefs, it goes down. And so you can develop what I call a negative confidence. So it's like you're confident in your negative beliefs, right? So you can be confident that you're never going to get better. You can actually be confident about that. If you have negative beliefs, I'm never going to get better, and you keep reinforcing that over and over again, your RAS keeps picking it up over and over again, you become confident. You even become convicted. I'm never getting better. You back yourself. You'd even go to war for that belief, right? Which seems crazy, but people get like that, right? Whereas the opposite is also true. You can develop a positive belief, and with enough reinforcement, you start to really believe that, and you start to move into a positive direction, right? You develop a positive confidence. I am going to get better. I am healthy, right? I am happy. I am capable of love. So that's actually the model. The mind launch method is the model that we use to reprogram the mind. But again, that's just one part of it, right? Which is reprogramming your subconscious mind. And then finally, right, we move into part 3, right? Which is master your emotions. So you've got to master your emotions, right? Your emotions are key. People have a weird thing with emotions where we never get taught how to deal with our emotions, especially as men, but even women as well, right? We've got so many coping mechanisms or avoidance mechanisms. We never want to deal with our emotions. We want to go out and drink, or we want to take drugs, or we want to smoke, or we want to eat food, or we want to watch Netflix or scroll social media, or even in some cases, like you want to just work really, really hard, and you never want to, slow down to think about things or to feel things. We're like scared of our emotions. People take prescription drugs to numb our emotions, like these mood stabilizers. It's basically just numbing your emotions. So for some strange reason, we've developed a culture that just doesn't want to have anything to do with emotions. However, your emotions are like energy in motion, right? Energy in motion, right? If you feel love, if you feel love, you feel that energy in your body. It feels really good, right? You feel peace. You feel that energy in your body. It's moving in your body. It feels good. You feel angry, right? You feel that in your body. It doesn't feel as good. You feel fearful, right? You feel that in your body. It doesn't feel good. You feel ashamed or embarrassed or humiliated. Most people think that doesn't feel good, right? However, I want to change your belief about emotions. There's no such thing as a bad emotion. It just is an emotion, right? What makes it bad is what you think about it, right? So back here, number 2, you've got some kind of belief system which says feeling this way is bad, right? So it instantly applies a resistance to the feeling, and you want to suppress it. You want to avoid it. Feeling an emotion is not bad. Feeling shame is not bad. It's part of the human experience. Feeling guilt is not bad. Feeling anxiety is not bad. It's just a fucking experience that you have, right? And so you've got to learn how to feel those things and not resist them so much, not tell yourself that it's bad. Even grief, when someone dies, it's not bad. It's a part of life. And it's okay for you to feel sad. It's okay for you to grieve. It's actually healthy and normal. It'll help you move on, right? The problem people have is they think that it's bad. They have some weird story which says, I can't feel like this. If I feel like this, that means something's wrong with me, right? Not true. You just need to learn how to feel your emotions. And the funny thing is, right, the way that you will get up to those higher levels of emotions or these higher states of consciousness is by transcending the lower levels of consciousness. So the lower levels of consciousness could be considered shame, fear, guilt, right? Anger, frustration. Those are like lower levels of consciousness. Again, they're not bad. They're just lower levels of consciousness. So when you're in those states, you do feel a bit more contracted, right? A bit more heavy. That's a fact. But you do feel that way. I'm sure you guys can resonate, but it's not bad. It's just that's what it is, right? And so if you want to get out of those states, you have to move up into the higher states. One of the higher states of consciousness is acceptance, right? Or harmony. You're in harmony, you're in flow, you're in acceptance of what is. So if you can actually take this higher state of consciousness of acceptance and apply it to all of your lower states of consciousness, you instantly transcend those lower states of consciousness and come up into a higher state of consciousness. And so the way that you overcome these lower emotions that you're currently struggling with or trying to avoid or using, coping mechanisms to deal with is actually to learn how to accept them, right? And you got another higher level of consciousness is courage. So you might not be able to go straight to acceptance. Maybe that feels like it's too much, but at least get yourself up to courage, where you have the courage to actually fucking try, right? And if you can get yourself there, you're on the path. And then from there, you go acceptance, you go courage, and then you have that willingness to keep going. That's a higher state of consciousness. And then finally, you get to acceptance and you accept what is. And after that, you get to peace and you get to love. And then, it's all good from there, right? So this is the importance of actually learning how to master your emotions instead of just suppressing them and avoiding them. And then what happens is we go back to regulating your nervous system. Now, why I have put this in a circle today is because it's like a circle. Nature is cyclical, right? So we go around and around, right? We go around and we go around and we go around. Because even after you go through this cycle once, what's probably going to happen is you're going to get triggered by something else, right? And then you got to learn how to regulate it, and you've got to practice regulating your nervous system again, practice changing your beliefs and your thoughts again, practice processing your emotions again, and you go around and around in this circle until you find a real deep sense of self-confidence that you can just manage whatever is coming up in your life, right? And this is how you shift into higher and higher states of consciousness, and you can achieve literally anything that you want to achieve when you master this, right? Consciousness shifting method, right? That is how you do it, right? And so again, it's a process, it's a practice, it takes time, it's not a quick fix, you won't get it overnight, but with the right guidance, with the right help, with a commitment to the process, right, with self-responsibility, with discipline, and with a little bit of trust, you can get there, right? You can get there, you can shift into a higher state of consciousness, and you can achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. And so that's really the training that I wanted to deliver for you guys today. And if you found this helpful and you want more help, I'm currently opening up some one-on-one spots, right? So these one-on-one coaching spots won't be available forever, just because of my own personal capacity. But if you're already in the program and you would like some extra one-on-one support, then you can reach out to me and just send me the word details on Instagram, or just send me a message on Instagram asking about the one-on-one coaching, and then we can discuss that. And I'll be happy to offer you some extra one-on-one sessions if you're already in the program and you want some more support, or if you're not already in the program, you'd like to learn more about the program and even inquire about the one-on-one sessions. Again, they might not be available, but there's always going to be the group that's available and the program that walks through this consciousness shifting method. So if you would like the details about that, again, just send me a message on Instagram, the word details. Or below this video, there's probably going to be some links and stuff like that about, how to work with me. So anyway, guys, that's it. I really just want you to know that this is possible, right? Again, I've spent 5 years professionally putting this together. But before that, I spent another 10 years with my own personal practice of self-inquiry to even understand myself at this level, right? Before I started teaching and coaching others. And in the last 5 years, I've helped over 200 people, like 250 nearly, probably more indirectly, but definitely 250 aroundabouts directly through coaching, probably a lot more through like Instagram, social media, YouTube, all that kind of stuff, workshops that I've run, etc., etc. But this stuff works, right? I know that it works because I've had so many people like give me their positive success story and review after working with me and saying that it worked and it changed their life. And so if you would like some help with this, again, I kind of gave you the details and instructions on what to do next. So you can, I'm sure, find your way through that. And until next time, I'll see you in my next video. Cheers. Bye.